Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So it's Thursday, which means it's time that we do our draft grades. And we got the 2014 draft. Pretty crazy timing, almost like I knew the Oilers and the Panthers were going to be in the Stanley Cup final this week, considering it has been talked about a shit ton, honestly, talked to death, about how the top four of the 2014 draft are all playing in the Stanley Cup final this year. 3 on Florida, 1 on Edmonton. Here's the initial order: Ekblad, Reinhart, Draisaitl, Bennett, Dalcol, Virtanen, Fleury, Nylander, Ehlers, and Ritchie. So a really mixed bag for the most part. But we're going to go through it now. We do it every single Thursday. We grade a draft. We go through the top 10. I do it based on where they were selected, different expectations at first 10th, as well as the fact of how good they are or how much potential they have. At this point, these guys are like 28 years old, so they don't have a ton of potential left. But we're going to go through it right now. Without further ado, let's get into it. Up first, we have Aaron Ekblad. I'm going to go with a C. I know that might be a little bit harsh, but when looking at Aaron Ekblad, really bursted onto the scene early on. 39 points in his rookie year, straight after getting drafted, won the Calder Trophy. Then he was a solid top pair, borderline number one defenseman for a while. Really hit his stride in the 2020s once the Panthers really got good. And in that 2022 season, had 59 points or 57 points in 61 games. He was around a point per game guy. Then he got hurt and just hasn't really been the same player for the most part since that. Last year, hovered around half a point per game. Still very good in the playoffs last year. And this year, only 18 points in 50 games. So when looking at Aaron Ekblad, the injuries definitely play a big factor in here, but I got to go based on how his career is. He was a good top pair guy for a while, and at one point was a legit number one. But at first overall, you do expect a franchise defenseman, and Aaron Ekblad really hasn't been that outside of maybe that 2022 season. No other season was he a top 10 defenseman, and right now he's outside of the top 30 probably. So when looking at Aaron Ekblad, not a bust, not even in the same discussion as Nail Yakupov or any of those guys, but not even he's well above an Eric Johnson, but still I think he's just a meh first overall pick. Not saying Florida's losing sleep over it, considering they have had a shit ton of success the last 4 years, but still I think a C is fair for a guy like Aaron Ekblad. We got to grade this a little tough, and Aaron Ekblad at first overall, if he went fourth overall, he's probably getting a B, maybe even a B+, but at first overall, expectations are massive, especially considering he's sandwiched between guys like McKinnon and McDavid, or 2013, 2015, 2016 Austin Matthews, just studs at first overall. So I need to dig him a little bit, and I'm going to give him a C. At second overall, Sam Reinhart. He gets a B+. When looking at Sam Reinhart, he was very solid on Buffalo. His final 3 or 4 years was around the 60 to 65 point guy on pretty bad Buffalo teams. Then gets traded to the Florida Panthers. First season, 82 points in 78 games. Last year, 31 goals, 36 assists, 67 points. And this year really breaks out with 57 goals. But even the prior 2 years, he was an elite two-way first liner. This year, genuinely a superstar. In the regular season, probably their most valuable player. He was fantastic. Great two-way winger that can pot a ton of goals. So at second overall, is he a franchise player? No, so I can't really get him into the A's. Definitely not an A, maybe an A-, but he definitely can be the second or third best player on an actual contender, considering that's what he's doing right now. Probably the third best player, but Florida is absolutely loaded. So when looking at Sam Reinhart, he has 534 points in 696 games already. He's probably going to end up around the 800 mark. It's a very solid pick for the Buffalo Sabres, even if, well, it's actually pretty solid because they still traded him for Yuri Kulich and Devin Levi, but when looking at it at second overall, Reinhart, solid pick overall. At third overall, it's pretty easy. A+ for Leon Draisaitl. The dude at 28 years old has 850 points in 719 games. Broke out in that 2019 season when he had 55 goals and 50 assists, or was it? I think it was 55 goals and 50, or maybe it was 50 assists and 55 goals, or 50 goals, 55 assists, but 105 points. Then the following season wins the goddamn Hart. Since that Hart-winning season has been around the 125 point pace guy every single year. Yes, he plays with Connor McDavid, but he's fantastic in his own right. Some legendary playoff numbers that he has put up. Not recently, not as soon as I bet him on for the fucking Conn Smythe at 16-1 during game one. But that goes without saying, still fantastic. Easily worth an A+. Sam Bennett, I am going to go with a C+. When looking at Sam Bennett, yes, he's really found his game now, but he still is only a good second-line center. And when looking at it, he did take a while to develop, never really panned out with the Calgary Flames. Right now, sitting at 285 points in 615 games. So the last 3 years, He's been a solid 45-ish to 55-point pace guy, but still at 4th overall, you maybe don't expect a franchise level player, but you do expect number one center. That's kind of what the Calgary Flames were expecting when they selected Sam Bennett. Hasn't really lived up to that. Again, not a bust. Similarly to Aaron Ekblad, not a bust, but never really reached that full potential. So I think you got to give him something like a C+. Now we got some busts to go through when looking at Michael Dal-Coll. Easy F. This dude had 21 points, 112 games for years. Islanders fans like myself thought for 4 years until John Tavares left, that like Dal-Coll and Tavares were going to be the most dominant duo in the Metro Division. They were going to tear it up. Just never happened. And I know that like Islanders get clowned for that, but I don't even blame Garth Snow back then in 2014, even though I don't remember it. I was 14 years old. Well, I kind of remember the hype around him, but he was viewed as that consensus 5th best guy after those guys. So even though it was a bust pick, it's not like Garth Snow ripped like someone that was like a Tyler Boucher at 4th, 5th overall. He was the correct pick there, just never really panned out for a multitude of reasons, and as a result, he gets an F. Jake Virtanen, I think you got to go with an F as well, although he did have a better NHL career than Michael Dal-Coll. Still, 100 points in 317 games is pretty goddamn ass. Yes, he did have one season where he had 18 goals, 18 assists for 36 points, but beyond that just didn't produce at the NHL level for the most part. He obviously had some off-the-ice stuff, probably never going to play in the NHL. Again, as a result, basically done at 28 years old. He gets an F. Hayden Fleury also gets an F. When looking at him, he actually played this year in the NHL for the Tampa Bay Lightning, but still, overall, his career, 37 points, 268 games as a defenseman. Never panned out anything beyond the bottom pairing defenseman. Back to the good, though. We got William Nylander at 8th overall for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He gets an A+. He gets an A+. Maybe last year or 2 years ago, he would have only been an A, but especially this year after fully breaking out. And last year, he still had 40 goals and 47 assists, but 99 points this year in the first half of the season was like the Toronto Maple Leafs, like best player or most valuable player until Matthews went on an absolute goal-scoring tear. But he has solidified himself as a top 5 player, top 25. Not top 5, top 25. Don't clip that. Do not clip that. Don't post that on social media. Top 25 player in the entire NHL at this point. I don't think that's that controversial, given his track record and the way that he has ascended. Now that he got paid, is he going to be as productive? Is he going to be a little bit lackadaisical going forward? It's definitely something to track, but William Nylander is just such a fantastic playmaker, and he does it playing with goddamn John Tavares. It's really impressive. So when looking at him, great player. He gets an A+ for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Really hit that pick out of the ballpark. Nikolai Ehlers at 9th overall. I'm going to go with an A. When looking at him, he peaked at 46 points in 47 games during the COVID season. The last 5 or so years, he should be getting more ice time on the Winnipeg Jets. Mason Appleton plays more on the Winnipeg Jets for some goddamn reason. But when you give this guy ice time, he can be a legit 70-point sniffing point per game guy. I really cannot wait to see him get traded. He is one of the smoothest puck carriers in the entire NHL. Amazing hands, very fast. I think in a new situation, getting legit, even good second line minutes. He played 50 this year. It was ridiculous. Even if he plays 17 minutes next year, which I think if he goes to a team, he might be playing 18, 19. I think we're going to see him break the 70-point mark pretty easily, probably 75, maybe even point per game. Get him on my New York Islanders is basically what I'm saying. Ehlers is an A for me for the Winnipeg Jets. Not a franchise, not a superstar, but at 9th overall to get a legit good first liner, 70-ish points. That gets an A in my books. And then lastly, Nick Ritchie. Nick Ritchie, I'm going to give a D. I'm going to give a D. I'm not going to quite give him an F. Yes, he's out of the NHL. There was like an insane clip of him just taking someone out in Europe. Don't condone that behavior. But when looking at Nick Ritchie, he did play almost 500 games in the NHL, 186 points. He had a couple of seasons where he was hovering around like the 30-ish point pace, a decent, okay power forward in your bottom 6 at times. I know my guy Marcuzzi absolutely hated him, but Nick Ritchie wasn't an absolute bust, unlike those other 3 guys. And the fact that he was at 10th instead of like 5th, 6th, and 7th, I'm going to give him a D. I'm going to cut him some slack. Now, when looking at it, here is the full draft grades. Ekblad, C. Reinhart, B+. Draisaitl, A+. Bennett, C+. FFF, A+. A. And a D. Let me know in the comments. What do you think about this? Again, this is a very weird draft. 3 straight-up busts. 4 kind of straight-up busts, including Nick Ritchie. He's a bust at the end of the day. Draisaitl, Nylander, out of the goddamn park. Sam Reinhart, good pick. Ehlers, good pick. Ekblad, Bennett, still impactful players, but given their draft position, not that great of picks. But yeah, let me know in the comments. What do you think? 2013 next week. You can assume what the top 2 grades of that guy is going to be when looking at McKinnon and Barkov. And I'll be seeing you in the next one.